Hello, welcome to Getting Started with SharePoint Framework. In this tutorial, we'll have a look on how to set up your development environment. This is December 2017 edition, so please note that if there's any changes in the guidance on how to set up your development environment, we'll keep on updating our written format and the written tutorial text always to be up to date if there's any small adjustments. And every now and then we'll keep on refreshing these videos, but please do double check the guidance from the written format, so if you are having issues just by following the video. Now, let's actually start up by setting up our development environment. So in here, I have a Windows 10 machine hosted in Microsoft Azure. Obviously, this could be your machine in your laptop, or this could be hosted in any other suitable platform. And what we want to do is to get started on applying or doing the needed setup for this machine around getting started on SharePoint Framework development. And you can find the steps to get started. If you go to SharePoint docs.microsoft.com/SharePoint, you'll land on this ENUS language by default. And in here, if you go SharePoint Developer and then SharePoint Framework, you can actually find a Getting Started tab. And in here, you can actually find the detailed written format, which is setting development environment. So this one will walk through all of the steps to how to set up your development environment. So number one step, what we need to do is to install the Node.js. In December 2017, we are actually in a slightly nasty situation related to Node.js and the support of the SharePoint Framework platform, because the long-term edition in the Node.js is 8.9.2, and in SharePoint Framework we do not actually support this yet, so the support is coming up relatively soon. But like mentioned in our written guidance, you will need to use a version 6.x to be able to do SharePoint Framework solutions on top of Node, or SharePoint Framework development on top of Node. There are ways of making 8.9 to work, but we do recommend to actually go to other downloads and install the 6.x version of the Node.js to your platform. So what I'm going to actually do is that I'm going to go to previous releases in the Node.js org, and then I'm going to go Node.js 6.x, and that's going to open up the view directly to download or click MSI installers on that machine. So here we can see x64 or x86 MSI installer for Node.js, and I'm going to actually just click the x64, and I'm going to actually start that installer immediately when it's downloaded and immediately when the security checkings have been completed for that particular installer. So in this video, every now and then when we do have a wait times, we kind of speed up the video to make things move faster. But in this case, we'll start the Node.js setup, 6.x setup, and we click next. We accept the license agreement. The default settings are absolutely fine. The default configuration is absolutely fine. And the installing this one to the machine is completed relatively fast. So there's few things how to double check your version, which you're actually running, or few ways of actually double checking the version. I'm using now a Windows 10 machine, so this might be slightly different if you're using a Mac or Linux, but in the Windows machine, the easiest way to do this is by starting the PowerShell. And you're able to then do node and SV, and that's going to actually show me that I'm running the 6.12.1 version. And if I'm doing an npm -v, I'm able to see that I'm running 3.10.10 version, which are the ones which do not have any issues, and we don't need to do any workarounds with SharePoint Framework. And like mentioned, this is the situation in early December 2017. We're working on getting the versions pumped based on the Node.js versions as well. The next step, what you need to do is figure out what is your development tooling. So what development tool you want to actually use for the development. And in our guidance, we're linking then Visual Studio Code, which is one of the free tools available. You can absolutely use Atom or WebStorm or whatever, even Notepad if you choose to do so. But Visual Studio Code is an awesome platform, and we're able to just download the latest version for Windows for free. And that's going to start downloading, and let's actually open the setup immediately when it's completely downloaded. The Visual Studio Code is a lightweight, let's say, development environment, more lightweight than Visual Studio, classic Visual Studio IDE, and it's designed for the client-side development. And it is a super great tool, also for PowerShell development and for many other languages as well. So let's actually check all of these and click next and install. So the Visual Studio Code is getting installed on a machine. Now, after the Visual Studio Code has been installed, we need to install a few NPM packages. So a few NPM things from the NPM package manager to make sure that we have readiness to actually start, well, first of all, to install the Yeoman templates for SharePoint Framework solution, and then the readiness to actually start creating operations or creating our solutions in this environment for SharePoint Framework. And then how do we do that is that we open up a PowerShell or whatever is your preferred command line window, and we install a Yeoman and a Gallop by running, let's put the npm install G as globally and Yo and Gallop, and this is then installing the latest version of the Yeoman and latest version of Gallop globally to this machine. So typically, obviously, technically you can install the Yeoman and Gallop locally, which would mean that you would install them in a folder where you're creating a solution, but you can absolutely install them globally as well, which means that you only have to wait the installation of them once before, so not on every single time you're creating a solution. Installing these will take again a few seconds or a few tenths of a seconds or a few minutes, slightly depend on the machine. In my case, that was relatively fast, so we don't have to worry about or wait longer than this. And then the last thing what we need to actually install is the npm install the Yeoman generators for SharePoint Framework. This one is actually bringing the project scaffolding and the SharePoint Framework specific tooling to your machine, and let's install that globally as well. And like mentioned, this could be technically installed locally as well, and you would be able to install different versions locally in the different folders, but installing that globally is the easiest way to at least to get started on the SharePoint Framework development. This one will take a while because there's quite a lot of stuff actually getting installed, so we'll speed up the video to make to double check and to summarize the video whenever the installation is completed. And there we go. Now the Yeoman template scaffolding has been fully completed, and we're actually ready to go with this machine. So let me clear up that one slightly. And now, if you're interested on what has been actually installed globally, you can always do npm g and list as the command, and depth equals 0, and this one will list from local global npm catalog what are the installed version within this machine. So this one will essentially then list, did I have a typo? Yes, I did. So let's do depth as 0 equals 0. So we don't actually get all of the dependencies and npm packages installed, just the depth 0 level in the global npm cache. So we're able to first of all see where's my global npm cache, and also that's currently the SharePoint generator version, which I'm installing directly available from npm, and then the Gulf version and the npm version and the Yeoman template version. So this one is the easiest way to double check what is the installed setup for your machine. But that's it for this setup. So right now what we've done is that we installed the Visual Studio first the Node.js 6.x version, because for time being in December 2017 the SharePoint Framework does not support 8.x version of the NPM. We also installed the Visual Studio Code to this machine, and also the needed Yeoman template and the Gulp and the SharePoint Framework generator. And that means that if I now start actually creating stuff, I can start creating my projects by running Yo, Microsoft and SharePoint. And that's going to then start the default scaffolding of my solution. We're not going to do this in this video because there's a separate tutorial videos where we actually create the initial version of our web part. But thanks for watching this one. Please proceed on the following step, where we actually create our first client-side web part and we host that one in SharePoint Online. Thank you.